Good evening. I'd like to call the regular meeting of the Board of Finance for Monday, July 22nd, 2019 order. First item on the agenda is public forum. Anybody wishing to address the board in public forum? Seeing none. Item number 2, approved minutes of, we have just the regular meeting minutes of June 17th, 2019. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Okay, any questions, comments, corrections?
I just have a typo on page 5.
Sure.
Mr. Hoey instead of Mr.
Ho.
Ho.
Hoy.
Hoy. Oi?
H-O-Y.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hoy. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw that one.
That's
While we're on page 5,
sure.
I don't want to jump on Mr. Hoy, but in the last reference above medical, it's a remediation project, the Army Corps of Engineers. I think we should complete that. Just says Army Corps.
Okay. A little bit more clear. Okay. Anybody else have anything?
I don't have anything.
So
Yep.
am I going crazy, but didn't Bill Bloss do the report, not Moira?
No, they were both here.
They were both here?
Yeah.
They were both here.
They were.
Yep.
Okay, then never mind. I just remember Bill Bloss, but okay.
I had a question of Mary Jane on the page 4 on the safer grant payments. Could you just, I'm always at a loss when I see these things. We're still awaiting 2 safer grant payments from the state totaling 160. Is that the final state subsidy on the safer grant?
No, we're in year 2 at the moment. So it started April of 18. So April 19 started year 2. So those are the last 2 payments I was reimbursements for fiscal year 6/30/19.
How much more is left?
Two more years?
2 more
Yeah.
years.
2 more years?
The
And
first
it-
2
and it
years
gets
was
less.
we're at 75%,
Right.
and the last year is 30 or 35%. I
Yeah,
apologize for.
Okay.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's, yeah, I was gonna say 5, but I think 5-year total. But I
It's
think
a
it's a
5.
It's
4-year.
3.
It's a 3-year total?
3 years.
I knew it was less than 5, I couldn't remember. Okay, so 3-year total. Okay.
And it drops.
Right,
Yeah.
Right, 75, 75.
okay,
I think it's 35. It's either 30 or 35. I apologize for not knowing that.
okay. All right, anything else on those? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? I think we're all there. So. Item number 3, correspondence pension committee. I know that usually we have building committee. I believe the building committee met. They were meeting later. I think they pushed their meeting, right, Tracy? They pushed it a week or maybe even 2 weeks. So we'll get those hopefully next month and catch up. Pension committee minutes.
I don't have a comment on the minutes, but I
Sure.
just wanted to acknowledge Patrick Smith's service to the pension committee and thank him very much, and I'm sorry he's moving out of Guilford.
Yes, I second that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. He's been a long-standing member of the pension committee.
Do we have any background on those minutes? I see on item 3 on page 1, and then it's reiterated on item 5 on page 2 on the portfolio update. There was a significant drop in May. Is that just general national market conditions?
Absolutely.
Because it came ricocheting up
Yes, it
in
did.
June, didn't it?
Mhm.
So there was nothing extraordinary about that,
No.
part of a national pattern.
Purely now, yes.
Okay.
If I could, I'm going to handle something now because it was in the minutes. 4.2, update on new pension actuary, and then there was a comment here. Mary Jane stated that she's working on looking to establish a trust for OPEB. Is there any kind of status, communication, correspondence about that we should be aware of, or in terms of your, in terms of that whole process that we talked about?
I haven't done anything new, only because we've been busy with year end.
Yep.
But I do have an appointment to speak to someone from our advisory committee this week.
Perfect.
to-
Great. just wanted to get some, an update, because I saw it in here and I figured I'd just handle it while we're on pension.
Yeah, our new advisors, FIA.
Good.
They're been contacting me the last couple of weeks, but so we're going to be speaking this week sometime.
Great. Has there been, did they have their meeting yet for July, or is it, yeah, they would have, right? They would have had it Wednesday.
Yes, we already had the meeting.
Chairman? Have they selected a chairman for the?
The vice chairman
Yep.
is acting as chairman at the moment.
Okay, okay. All right.
On that same paragraph, where it's, the pension actuary is Milliman, and the sentence reads, "The new contract rendered a reduction of approximately $20,000." Is that a reduction in their fees, or?
Correct, fees.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything at all?
Yeah.
Yeah,
4.3.
Oh,
There,
sure.
it says that the police were having a meeting on the 16th. Is there any update from that meeting?
Yes, they had a very good meeting. Mitch did report last Wednesday. They have come to a final agreement. They were able to agree on all of the points. There were only one or two that the town made a little change in the way it was worded. Not necessarily that either side was wrong. They just wanted to make it very clear. So copies of that have been given to the pension committee, and they'll be reviewing that and making a recommendation to send to the Board of Selectmen. The Selectmen will give its final approval on that.
Thank you.
Okay. I take it nothing on the investment report? Okay. If nothing further, item number 4, review and accept report of expenditures for the Board of Education for June 2019. Right on cue with the thunder. Well done. Linda Trudeau, Vince Baglio, reporting for the Board of Ed. You're reporting.
Sure.
Your show.
So I want to highlight that the expenditures for the month were $8,910,000, $359.26. And I'd like to review some of the items on the financial statement, particularly those that were over budget for the month. And if you notice on the first page, under salaries, teachers' salaries were over budget by $280,083.68. That's a result of 6 payments as opposed to the typical 2 per month, but this would cover July and August salary payments. And then on purchase services, there were several items that were over budget. If you'll notice, legal services of $14,078. That was for the attorney for the nurses' negotiations. And then special services, $180,000 for special ed, right? That was a special education payment. And then electricity, $37,804.60. There was a misreading of the meter at the Cox School for most of the year. So this was a catch-up payment for what we were actually using in the way of electricity. And then upkeep of building and grounds was over by $187,000, and that was primarily a result of a number of HVAC repairs in several of the schools.
On those HVAC repairs, 3 of them, it didn't indicate which schools they were. Do you happen to know which ones they were?
I probably have to go back and look.
I
Yeah,
think it was Melissa Jones?
you can let me know.
Trying from memory, wasn't it Melissa Jones at one point?
One of them was $4,600. It was a rather large one.
Yeah, I may have it. Let me see if I. Well, you can. I'll keep look. I'll look while you keep going. Then,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
So that was purchase services, a total of $240,398.66 over budget. Tuition was over by $62,698.74. And We're requesting an additional $140,000 after the $400,000 transfer that we made earlier in the year, a couple of months ago, a total of $540,000 for the year over what was budgeted and approved at the time. So that is consistent with what we were assessing for the 2019-20 school year of $2,900,000. And from what I recall, when I was first on the budget, when I was involved with the budget for 2018-19, we had requested $2,258,000, and the previous year was $2,622,000. And I had questioned that, and the reason being that I think there was an anticipation that parents were looking at more in-house special services. Is that?
The change from the budget from last year to the 18-19 year?
Yeah.
There was a number of students that were aging out, as well as some other changes, but then we had some unexpected, either students that were already in district that were outplaced, or people that moved into district, bless you, that were already outplaced.
So if there's a 62, right now, if there's a
So
62,000
62,000
shortfall.
Shortfall, right.
And there's
So
going to be a request transfer of 140.
One-
Is that due to additional invoices or additional services that are expected to be coming in?
Right, there's still additional invoices.
Okay, so it's
coming in.
just 62 now, but it's expected to go as the invoices come in
Right.
for June into July into
Right.
August?
Right.
Okay, so you're just planning ahead of time to be conservative on that? Okay, got it. Just want to make sure.
Questions?
And then for capital, $94,327.59 over budget, and we anticipate money coming back in to offset that, though, right?
Right, from the technology
That's
lease.
the technology
To
lease,
reimburse
right.
for purchases.
And the transportation total, I guess $249,219.56. That where anticipate special ed buses that might throw that over for the year end, but we should be recouping with fuel savings, is that correct?
Let's see, so
We anticipate that fuel will be under?
right, fuel will be under,
Yeah.
but special, bless you,
Bless you.
special education buses will be over, and regular transportation will be over. And the cause for the regular transportation to be over is the transportation for OLM that was not budgeted for the year. And then the special education buses is based on the needs and the number of students.
You expecting more to come in on special education buses?
From what was reported here, yes.
I have a question about,
So, based on these areas that were over, I made a motion to approve transfers from employee benefits of $512,000. Also, supply materials, $114,000, and capital of $200,000 to salaries, which is over 57.6, so we requested 91,000. Purchase services, it's over 240,000, requested $410,000. Tuition is 62.7 over, and we requested 140,000. And for transportation, the final bills may be over, so the request is requesting 185,000 to transportation. And a motion was made and approved at the board meeting.
That was the July 8th meeting, or?
Yes.
Okay. Usually, is that summarized anywhere in the documents? Usually we get some sort of a summary of the transfers that occurred. Is that?
So they're not reflected in the
It's not
financial
reflected in this report 'cause it's June 30th.
Because it was,
It was after.
it hadn't
in fact.
occurred, it hadn't been approved yet.
Okay.
You will see the approved transfers, there's a column for them on the financials.
Right.
to
So
show-
it'll be next month that we're going
It'll
to see
be
this.
next month, you'll
Okay.
see the final report.
Sometimes I think we've gotten a summary of just, just a, kind of a back of the napkin almost kind of idea. Okay, these are all the numbers and this is how it got transferred over.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, I have that memo that was given to the Board of Education for their approval. I did not bring you copies.
It's okay. We're going to see it next month. So it just makes it a little bit easier when we're looking at, there were a lot of numbers of where things are moving around, so.
Right.
But ultimately,
After all the transfers, where do we net out?
So after all the transfers, we reduced our medical payment by $125,000 for June.
right.
So that's really going to cover the shortfall for the
That's
year.
gonna balance it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we also took $250,000 and made an additional pension contribution.
So 375,000 came out of the medical contribution? Okay.
And 125 will cover us through the end of the year.
Does the
That's-
250,000 extra, does that put us at the actuarial's recommendation or close?
Very close,
Mhm.
very close.
I see, okay.
Sorry, Ken, before you go, I do have details for that big Air Dynamics invoice, the 4,246, that was for Adams. The other two, the 510 and the 408, I don't have exact details, I can,
That was the big one that I was really
Yeah,
interested
so that was for
Normally,
ad-
they indicate which building it is.
so I have a, I'm running shorthanded all summer, so I have somebody else doing the invoices, and has a different way of putting in descriptions. So some of the descriptions may look a little different, it's just because there's a different person helping out and doing it.
Okay.
All right, sorry, Ken.
No, I noticed legal is consistently over, and we're over by 17.6%, so another 14,000 for legal, is that all?
So by the time we're said and done, legal's gonna be at $103,414, so we will be $23,414 over in legal. Because I've just received the last June bills today. And most of that was ongoing negotiations or special education issues.
Placement of children, so forth, yeah.
Mike, can I ask a question?
Sure, yeah.
I'm just curious, I seem to recall we had a discussion about specialty transportation and the way they bill you. Like pages and pages, are
So-
they gonna quarterly bill you? I mean, that's gotta be a nightmare to enter.
It was in the.
So it does.
I did read that in the minutes that you had commented on
So,
trying to
yeah,
streamline it,
These
so.
were actually ones from the winter that were hanging out that we were still kind of going back and forth on the costs. They have since done a summarized invoice, which is much easier for us to enter. These were just ones that were hanging out from back when they
Okay.
told me they couldn't do a summary invoice.
Okay.
Okay.
I was probably asleep as a switch here, but what is the transfer to balance tuition for the year?
So we're going to add another $140,000.
So total of 540.
On the tuition report that I handed out to you before, Ken, it's down at the bottom. There's a line highlighted in yellow
There
is
it
the new
is.
transfer, and then that was the previous transfer that was approved in April for.
Thank you.
We touched on warrants. So I just out of curiosity, so there's on page 10, and obviously must be something for tuition-based, probably a parent, with the name removed for privacy. So there's a reimbursement for April and May of about 20,000. Would that be something typically, an amount like that, is that travel? Or is that literally the parent
That's-
paying the tuition costs out of pocket?
It's the parent paying the tuition out of
It is,
pocket, and
okay.
we are reimbursing a portion of the tuition.
Okay,
I'm guessing that was from a settlement that was reached.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't think it was travel related, but I want to make sure it was something tuition related,
No,
because that would
no.
make sense. Okay.
Yeah, no, that was a tuition settlement.
Okay.
Which I'm also guessing contributed to the legal costs.
All right, so, anything else on financials, warrants?
Yeah, on page 2, annuity investors life insurance company, the $52,892.83. That is going into a post-retirement medical trust for Catherine Walker upon her retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And a teacher.
Okay.
So teachers that were
The
hired
teachers.
before a certain date are eligible for this benefit.
for
to
the
have
benefit.
the funds go into a medical trust.
Okay.
Also, I want to highlight, while not terribly significant amount, on page 5, on the Guilford Dining Services, there's an item for $674.66, senior negative balance. By law, by state law, we're required to end the year in a negative balance for senior uncollectibles. Typically, if it's an elementary student, where they more than likely going to,
There's some debate, the state
yeah.
really would want us to cover every negative balance at the end of the year, but because we roll them over year to year, we only will clear up the senior balances that we cannot collect on, and we do make every attempt to collect on them.
Right.
And last year, this amount was about twice this amount, so
So it's better.
we're getting better.
So these are meals that were purchased but not.
Right.
Or consumed
So-
but not paid
Right.
for.
We will not take a meal out of a student's hand. They will always be able to eat. They will get a full meal. They can't get the à la carte items, they can't get anything extra, but they will always be provided a full meal. We don't want any kid coming hungry.
Right.
Let's see.
Page 7, the Omni Group for $34,381.20. That's Kathleen Chamberlain's sick pay for 1819. That's going into a 403B
That's a big one.
account.
And I'd imagine it's a similar situation where
Okay.
she was hired at a time where
Right.
that would
Yeah.
accumulate.
So the way it works is the district decides where to put the money based on an interview that we do with the employee. So whether they have the need to pay medical after they retire or they don't, and that determines where we put the money.
Great. So this is by agreement where you're putting it, more or less?
More or less, we can't, the employee can't not have a choice in it, because as soon as they have a choice under IRS rules, it becomes a taxable event.
I see.
So by making it strictly the employer's decision, then it becomes a non-taxable event for them.
I see.
So, but based on a series of questions that we ask them, we can determine which is really the
The
best way
best
to go.
vehicle. Okay.
Right. In all the years we've been doing it, I don't think anybody has ever had an issue with our determination of where the funds will go.
Great.
Anything else?
On, Vin, I don't know if your page numbers are the same as the rest of us, but
Oh,
on page
okay.
18, Lina, Lina, there are a number of different items for Board of Education, life, and AD&D.
Yes.
What,
So it's the life insurance policies and the disability insurance policies for employees.
oh, okay.
It's a newer carrier than we've had before. I think we've only done, when we switched to them, it might be
And
this
is
past
that
year.
like a quarterly invoice or monthly?
No, they're monthly.
Okay.
I was curious about something in the minutes.
Mm-hmm.
There was kind of a bus accident, thankfully just really minor accident, I think.
It seemed more substantial than that.
Yeah,
Yes.
because the bus did end up in a tree, but,
Yes.
I mean, they said maybe broken ankle or something like that, right? But minor injuries.
There were some broken bones in the injury, in the,
So it looks like the driver that hit the bus is probably at fault, but the minutes said that it wasn't known yet.
I haven't seen it, and I don't really think I would want to comment on something like that
Right.
without having seen the police
Yeah.
report and having all the
It's going
facts.
through due course at this point.
So curious if it's not the other driver's fault, the bus company would maintain all the insurance on the buses, right? That's not us, right?
Well, yeah, because it's their contract, it's their buses.
Right.
Okay.
The town doesn't own the buses.
We don't own the buses, so it's not
Yep.
ours.
All right.
Will the Connecticut Center for School Change line item be disappearing from future budgets, the executive coaching?
I can't guarantee it, but I would say for the services that have been provided this year, yes.
Okay. Okay. Great.
You never know what the future's gonna bring.
That's true. That's a very good point.
Okay, so free for all. Anything on minutes, warrants,
Yeah.
anything else?
Thanks.
Go ahead, Ken.
On the operations committee, there was reference, Linda, that you made to something called the Therapeutic Learning Center being launched next year. What is that, and how much is that going to impact on the budget?
So actually, it's an expansion of an existing program that we have in-house, and it is being done without adding any additional staff. It's being done with a relocation of staff. It may just mean some specific furniture or supply purchases, but it's not going to add any staff to the district.
So it will be absorbed within the budget.
Yes.
And I know that some of the programs have kind of progressed through the school system as the first participants in that program. Is this kind of a similar concept where some of the participants are moving from elementary school or to Baldwin to Adams?
Yeah,
or-
I'm trying to think where the first one is. I'm not 100% sure, and I don't want to say the wrong thing.
Sure, sure.
It could be, I want to say it almost is going backwards, that it was at the high school, it's now going backwards, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I can double check on
All right, great, thanks.
Okay, anything else?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead.
One other thing. On the warrants, again, I think I raised this before. On specialty transportation, you got, two big clusters of invoices. At the bottom of page 12, you have 223,000, and then another 58,000. So that's, kind of 280,000,
that. Right, so the
lumped together.
The first bill, the $200,000 one is the regular transportation, so that's all the regular buses that we use every day. The 30 regular buses, 5 smaller buses. So that's always a pretty consistent one. What does vary in there is some of the special trips are not every day. So there's a trip between the high school and Adams that runs midday, and there's a trip to Educational Center of Arts, which is only 4 days a week. So depending on how, bless you, how the it falls in the calendar, that fluctuates. So that's why that is slightly different. The other bill is the special ed transportation that specialty does for us. So it's the in-district special ed transportation, and that's the one that's usually around 56,000.
And I noticed Mercy in there. Is this the final payment on the Mercy subsidy? I understand they're transferring
Yes,
I think it was only 1 year.
was that May or June's invoice?
May.
So there should be one more bill they were transporting in June. Yeah, we just paid one more invoice for
Has
specialty.
it been confirmed that they're leaving the town?
As far as I know, that
It was
they
only
are,
1 year.
they are done, and we will not be transporting them next year.
Okay. Is there anything else? I just wanted to make sure, so just to summarize. So, at this particular moment, with what we've been hearing over time, the shortfall was about, did it end up being 125?
125.
And this is from last month, that was estimated to be about 200, which months before that, it was in the 600s. So I know in the minutes, it was captured that I mentioned something about the Board of Ed doing a great job, but, and the school system in totality. But to be at 125 after what we heard is a pretty impressive amount of work to be done by everybody on the school side of the budget. And I do think we've been in the loop, as opposed to last year, was a little bit more of a surprise. I mean, I can't speak for my colleagues on this board, but I think the 125 shortfall, but then taking the medical, taking it out of that and then putting more into the pension, with where we are with the medical account right now, I think I've been totally in favor of that, to build up the pension. So I think it was a good move to do that. So I commend again this month the Board of Education and the work that you've all done to bring that, mitigate the shortfall that we knew that was going to be a challenge, but it was met. So I personally appreciate that. So well done, very well done.
I agree. I think it's great that you've reduced it to the extent that you have, but I think it's also important for people to realize that that's part of the reason you're able to do that is maintenance and things like that wasn't done. And so while there's the short-term savings to minimize the deficit, the deferred maintenance eventually becomes a bigger and bigger issue as buildings start to age and repairs don't get made and things don't get replaced as quickly as they otherwise might. So it's great that you're able to do it, but it came at a cost. So
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else? Board of Ed? If not, entertain a motion to accept the report of expenditures of the Board of Education for the month of June 2019 in the amount of $8,910,359.26.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Item number 5, review and approve expenditures for town government, June 2019. Mary Jane.
Hey, Mary Jane.
Good evening. Shall we open up revenue? Or would
Okay.
you like to go someplace
No,
else?
revenue is fine.
Your choice.
The revenue is fine.
Okay.
So if you notice first I'd just like to preface that this is preliminary June reports. We will have final June reports for you at your next meeting. And also capital reports for the quarter will come next meeting. I figured it wasn't worthwhile bringing you preliminary capital reports and then going over the whole thing again next month, so I hope you're okay with that. On the revenue side, as you can see, there are very few departments that did not reach their budget, and some of them very small. The most notable, as far as not meeting the budget, is the golf course. Overall, however, we are coming in $1.7 million of surplus on the revenue side. So that's where that stands at the moment.
I'll ask the question now rather than go into old business or whatever later on, but on the golf course, last month, task force was formed. First Selectman Hoey talked about the task force being formed. Has there been any movement or any updates on that, or is that something we should just wait until next month for an update? Maybe it's a little bit too
I know
early.
they had a meeting. I was not part of that meeting, so I really can't
Okay.
report. I do know that the Golf Commission is holding a golf tournament in hopes of raising some additional funds. So we've been working with them on how to get that set up.
Okay.
So, but as far as what they're doing for the
Okay.
task force, I haven't been privy to that information.
Well, we'll try to bring that up next month then.
That
See
would be a
if
good
there's-
idea.
If there's any update, okay.
Do you have
Kat-
any projection on where the ambulance revenue is
Ambulance
going to? It's really high.
Yeah, ambulance revenue is we don't expect too much more. I didn't speak to the chief about revenues today, only expenditures, but they've been pretty current month after month with their revenues, so I'm really not projecting, much more in that area.
Okay.
I had one other question.
As you're looking for that, I mean, for fire, building, there's a couple of these departments that they do have substantially higher revenues, but also had higher expenses, and
Correct.
that's the trade-off,
Correct.
so.
Yes, the
and that-
building
and that-
department,
And
we've
that's shown
spoken about that.
in the next,
Yeah, the next
report, so.
start with the good news.
Right. And it is, so. Find it?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Okay.
On the very last page, almost the very last item, tax relief for elderly, we're over, it's not a big item, but we're at about 315% on revenue. Do you know why?
We at one point last year when we did the budget had anticipated not receiving one of those revenues, so we did not budget for it like we had all other years, and it did come through for us. So it was we have gone back to budgeting that for next year.
We know where that came from?
Comes from the state.
From the state.
Mhm.
We didn't get it last year, we're getting it this year.
We've gotten it every year. We did not
Didn't think-
anticipate
didn't
getting it this
anticipate
year.
it.
when
Thought
we
the
put
state was gonna
budget
pull it
together.
this year, yeah.
Welcome.
Yep.
Absolutely. Better in that direction than the other.
Okay, anything else on revenue? Expenditures?
Quite a bit on expenditures. I'll go into some details, obviously, next month. I'll be bringing forward all of the transfers to make all of these line items whole. Many of them we have already discussed, but I'll just touch on each of the ones that are at least over at this point. Starting with the selectmen, I have mentioned that before. That's the land use technology consultant that we had, which a transfer will come from committed fund balance. The next item is human resources. There were mid-year salary adjustments approved by the first selectman, which will also be transferred from committed, from reserve for personnel for that. Legal, not sure if there's anything more I can say about legal. That one, other than it's coming in a lot less of an overage than we had initially anticipated, so that's actually been pretty.
Yeah, we were trending much higher mid-year.
We
So
were,
it's slowed
and
down.
like I've said, we've been very diligent on making sure that all of the invoices are appropriately paid from different funds that we have. Any other funds that we had available, we were using that money to pay for them as well. Next one is the building department. We've mentioned that in the past. Additional revenues coming in on the other side, and some large projects, which is causing that overage. The next is planning and zoning. Again, there was a small mid-year adjustment made to one of the new employees, and so that will easily be covered. Natural resources is trees. You know, the storms that we had this year, you know, could be out again tonight. So, you know, that is really the extent of that. There is still an outstanding purchase order, so I have Kevin working on trying to clear that, so that would help that overage immensely. Economic development, the Board of Selectmen gave EDC the permission to contribute to a new, I forget how many towns, there's like 4 or 5 towns that are getting, working together. Madison, Guilford, Branford, North Branford, and Durham, I think, are the towns, and they've hired a consultant, or they're looking to hire a consultant so that all the towns can work together, bringing in some economic development. So instead of working always in New Haven County, which we know where all of that effort is placed, they're having something a little bit closer to town, you know, closer here. So they did go over in that line item, but they did approve that our portion of the anticipated cost of that be spent. So that's where that overage comes from.
So we haven't spent that yet, but we just kind of
We
set
have
it
a
aside?
purchase order out for it, yes,
Okay.
because we knew that it was going to be coming.
Okay.
So, but right, the check has not gone out the door yet.
Right.
Until they determine what it was. But I think the selectmen felt that we knew we had the additional revenue this year. It wasn't a large dollar amount, but they preferred to do it in that year than worry about
Having
what
it
the next year
Yep.
would come. So that was a decision that they made. Fire, we've spoken about. We do have Just this week, we received the June 30 reimbursement, so we received $168,000. It's not shown in these reports, obviously. Came in after these reports were done. There's a $20,000 of open purchase orders we're looking to close, but there still will be, and they will be over budget in their replacement line. Again, I did speak to the chief today. Hopefully, it's not going to be any higher than what it is now. The communication line item is over for a couple of things. The VOG system that is used by public safety has been expanded to cover all of town government, so that we can utilize the software for all departments, and we've been having a lot of meetings on that again. So that was an unanticipated cost budgetarily, which was an $18,000 additional expense. That's in the contract line. And telephone, I think it's split between there. And another reason for their overage, they had to totally replace the system in the social services, and that was unanticipated maintenance sort of item that was not budgeted. They had to redo all of that. So those are the two items that the chief noted today caused that
It came out of there,
overage.
not out of capital? The
For which
technology?
one?
You were just saying that the replacement of what was it they replaced?
Telephone system.
Telephone, oh, okay, telephone system, okay, as opposed to computer, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The next item is the health department. I might have mentioned this before. We did approve, there's surplus in the engineering department, and we approved some additional overtime in the health department to bring them up to date on some of their input into the computer. After we had that big technology, it was kind of like the next step. Engineering had a significant savings, so the selectmen again approved the use of some of that savings in salary to cover the overtime. The line item is only over $766, and that overtime was $1,465. So, they were able to find some funds within their budget as well.
Will any of the encumbrances be canceled to wash that out?
All encumbrances are being looked at this
Yeah,
point. So
yeah.
by the time next,
It may not even.
it might not even be there, but at the moment it's there. So it's I don't want to just don't want any surprises next month if it's still there. So. Youth and Family Services, we have their grant, that transfer for the grant has not been made, so we should see that overage go away. Capital, we have a number of capital items that were done from other areas. If you remember the IT, we did $110,000 contract with IT that was approved to come out of the reserve for IT, so that will be transferred over. We had...
That item was 805%, right? Just on the Infotech systems, right?
Right,
that's
the
first
100
capital item?
Right, because it was because it was an additional $110,000 that was done afterwards. We approved that coming out of the committed reserve for IT. We just need to make that transfer. We have the Public Works, not Public Works, Engineering Department was approved to purchase a vehicle, again with surplus engineering funds, so that will be a transfer as well. We had a couple items that came up that we'll need to cover. The walkway at Youth and Family Services, which was deemed a hazard, was approved to be done. That was $42,000. That was not budgeted, so we'll be looking to do that. And the energy performance contract is still in the capital line. That be transferred to the debt line. So we'll be transferring that before you see that. So there will be some items that we'll need to cover from transfers, but the majority of it will be coming from other sources as we approve those transfers next month.
Okay.
But the energy performance is on target. It's
Oh, absolutely.
no extraordinary expense.
No, we're talking, this is the first payment on the lease
Right.
that we've had to make.
Is capital over because the lease payment's in there?
That is over, yeah, that is part of
You
it.
didn't expect it to be in capital at the beginning of the year?
We didn't budget for it at
Unless I
all
remember the last
in fiscal 19. But we've had some significant savings in electricity. The library gave us back over $20,000 in electricity. And Public Works had savings in electricity. You know, there have been savings in other line items this year that maybe it wasn't a wash to cover the debt, but we have begun to see some significant, you know, savings, even in our regular, even in the facilities. So, you know, and that's how the Board of Ed kind of budgeted for it. You know, they're using the savings, you know, to pay for their portion as well. So, but it's now budgeted for 2020.
Can you rewind back to fire department building maintenance up to 185%? Was there some specific reason for that, or?
There was, I think I
Were we off
reported
by
on
that
that another
much?
day, and now I don't remember what it
Yeah,
was.
I don't remember either, I
Emergency
apologize.
or unexpected maintenance.
Yeah, it was
To the
I don't
building.
remember, I don't exactly remember what it was. I know I
no,
reported on that another
It
Almost
time.
was
double on that
it
one.
was last
Fire department.
meeting.
There's a bunch of things.
Yeah, I know I reported on that before, and I apologize for not remembering
All
what
right,
that
I mean,
is, but
there's
I can
probably a
certainly.
Yeah, we didn't miss by that much, right?
Yeah.
It was something went wrong.
Right, it was it's unanticipated. What I don't remember is what that unanticipated item was, so I can certainly look that up.
There's some other things in fire as well.
So we improved the ambulance. It
That
was
was-
like the actual building maintenance.
Yeah, under building maintenance, it's 30,000 over in building
Yeah,
maintenance and
and,
fire. So that was the differential in the fire, operating fire. so.
Also, operating supplies and replacement salaries.
Well, as I said, we knew replacement salaries, unfortunately, still over again.
Didn't we expect it to go down a little with the 2 extra guys up in the
We did,
north, the station in North Guilford now?
we did.
Okay.
And then you look at the revenue on the fire side, you know, fire revenue.
For the
There's
ambulance.
More calls.
The revenues are ambulance though, and you've
Yeah.
got 3 categories here. that-
It'd be better if there were less calls and it had been
True,
flat.
if you're
For the
already on a
community,
call,
but-
you don't leave, you don't punch
Yeah.
out, right?
Right.
So-
Part of it is just timing of calls. You can't just be
Yeah,
like,
you
hey,
can't,
no.
yeah.
See ya.
See ya.
Yeah, the assistant chief keeps data, scads of data. I mean, if, I'd love to come and report on that. If you ever needed him to, he does a great job of keeping track of all of that. And then just the last thing is the debt. You know, so we do have the premiums. We do take a deduction to use the premiums from the prior year's bonding. So again, that'll be a transfer that we make next month.
Okay.
So overall, without the Board of Education at the moment, we're at $131,000 left overall on the town side. And, you know, even if we'll be transferring some money in as needed and do the best we can to keep those at a minimum, but we're still pretty good at the moment,
Okay.
considering we have very little left to do, so.
So we're 131 with a surplus.
To the good so far.
Yeah, and 125 deficit, so we bring it together, we're right on.
At the moment, we're still, probably have some more expenses coming in, all the monthly expenses we probably haven't paid yet.
Anything else on expenses before we move on to warrants? Okay. Anything on warrants?
Just a question, a general question.
Sure.
Most of the warrants in the whole tree tending and removal field go to Bartlett. And there's an occasionally one to an individual in this set of warrants, and there's one to another company. I think there's only one invoice to A&L for $2,800, and there's one to an individual for his service, which was 1,900, and then you've got the rest of them for Bartlett. Just the question is, who gets what?
Depends on the size of the tree, it depends on how tall it is, depends on the...
Who's available?
Yeah, who's available and the danger that's involved, whether it's in the middle of the, you know, a crane is involved sometimes, depends on a lot of factors. And usually it's on the weekends, and like you said, who's on
A
the...
lot of times it's really who's available
Yeah.
and how big of an emergency it
I
is.
see.
Yeah.
You know,
On some of these special warrants, I see stuff for the water main project, feasibility study. That is part of something that we recover, though, when they get the assessment, right?
correct. The Mulberry Point Water Project will eventually be no cost to the town.
Okay.
So we've already started to receive some of the grants. We received half of the grant from the Connecticut Water, using that money to pay for what we have now. Similar to how we do bonding, we'll be paying out the funds and then being reimbursed by the loan. I'm gonna hold off as long as I can to tap into the loan, because once I hit the first penny on the loan, the interest will start to accrue, and I want to try to keep that up to a minimum. So I'm hoping to use the grants and some town funds first before we do that. But the project is really only anticipated to be 18 months. So as soon as the project is 100% complete, we'll be working on making those assessments.
Is that interim interest our cost?
No.
Okay, that's also recovered in the
Be covered
assessment.
up, yeah. So what will happen is, once that cost per unit, per homeowner is determined, they will receive an assessment bill from us. You can choose to pay the whole thing, and we will immediately cover the loan with that, or you can choose to pay it over 20 years with the added interest. So, but any accrued interest up to that point will be rolled into the total amount. That's why I'm trying to keep it to a minimum.
Great. Anything else on warrants?
Is the Simon saga over?
As far as I know,
Okay.
as far as I know.
Did they spring him, or did he get the gas chamber?
Did you read the paper?
I haven't even been following it.
He was
Too much.
he was shipped off to another state.
Okay.
In
Who is this?
agreement with both parties.
Yeah.
Both parties, there was a settlement, both
He's
parties.
no longer a guest of the
He
town.
is no longer a guest of the
He's
town.
gone to Michigan, hasn't he?
Correct.
A question here on an invoice in special funds for Casel Brothers Associates for consulting services on the turf.
Castle Booth. That's Castle Booth. That's the owner's rep services.
Castle Booze.
Castle Booth, yeah, for the turf field.
And that was something we absorbed.
Yes,
Yes.
That was our cost.
that was our owner's rep cost to have them monitor the project, which has been open now for a little while, much sooner than anticipated, so it's all good.
I believe all parties really wanted to get that resolved.
Oh, yeah.
so-
Yeah,
They moved very quickly on that.
Did you say that the water main extension up in Mulberry, this was our last invoice on that we're getting?
Oh,
that
no,
it's
the
going
project
forward?
is just starting.
So we front it, and then we get repaid?
Correct. As I stated, we have a number of grants and we are starting to use some of those grants at first, and looking to, similar to how we do our bonding, to cover the costs up front before we get reimbursed by the loan.
Right. Okay. Medical?
So on the medical, you'll note that overall for the year, our total expenses were slightly less than they were last year, and that is purely an effect of the town this year implementing the HSA. So the year before, the Board of Ed did, and the town did this year. We had made an estimate of what our savings would be, and it's come in even more than we had anticipated, so that was really good news. On the catastrophic claims, we did exceed our premium by almost $100,000, so that was good decision-making there as well. You will know, as already was discussed, for the month of June, you'll see the lower amount going in as revenue from the town and the Board of Ed due to the $375,000 difference for the Board of Ed's contribution. But all that being said, at the end of the year, we do anticipate $4.8 million surplus in this account.
So the amount, right, it's reflected here, which is good. So the amount of 4.839 million is reflective of the decreased contribution from the Board of Education.
Correct, it's all in there. So it's
And
absorbed
you,
in there.
and the town's portion also?
The towns made 100% of their
They
contribution.
made 100% of theirs, so this is just the town's contribution?
This-
And a portion of the Board of Ed?
So the 1.113 is
Yeah.
a normal contribution, town and Board of
Right,
Ed,
so-
on a monthly basis. And you'll see June is $375,000 less, so the town put in their full contribution, and the Board of Ed
What is
was theirs.
375?
Yeah,
Okay.
375,000.
I was 100,000 off.
Okay, no, the town,
Got that on camera too, there was 100,000.
Town put the whole
In my
thing in.
head, I was off. Okay, yes, 375, which is the amount, the 250 and the
Correct.
125.
Yep.
Got it, okay. Yeah, I actually saw the double asterisk next to June, but I didn't see any note for the double asterisk. I don't,
oh, well.
It maybe
'cause
got cut off.
Well, yeah, because I probably didn't
Next
change
page.
my set
It's-
printer, or was there set print area?
that probably said, this is based on the Board of Ed.
Yeah.
Okay.
To see if you would ask me about it.
We would have gotten there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
as
did. I
we
forgot to
discussed it. Okay.
add an extra line to the printer.
Yeah, no, we're good, okay. Anything else on medical?
But just to reiterate, the 250 of the 375 that the Board of Education didn't contribute to the medical,
They
they
put
did,
into pension.
they put in the pension,
Correct.
right?
Yep.
So they're funding they're putting the money into
It's a
another fund. that's
reallocation
gonna-
which we were notified of.
Right.
Actually, several months ago, that they
Right.
were thinking about doing this based on the health of the medical benefit fund and
Right.
where they stood.
You can save the taxpayers millions of dollars by just being healthy. Eat your spinach.
Or not getting in accidents.
Right.
None of which are under our
Under
control.
control, right.
Okay. Anything else from Mary Jane? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second?
Wow, you guys are quick. Do you want to even know what the motion is?
I'm assuming.
I was
To approve our expenses.
All right, well, if you all know what it is, then I'll just call for a vote. No, I have to read it into record for Tracy. Motion to approve the report of expenditures of the town for the month of June 2019 in the amount of $2,065,793. There's a motion. There's a second.
No, I'm thinking about it.
You better not change it now.
All right,
All
I'll
right.
so moved.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? I do have a recusal. Payment to Antonazzi Associates in the July 17th special fund warrants. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee reports, building permits, 12 months. Well, it wasn't the lowest amount of single-family permits, but it was close. Obviously, a lot of other funds there, a lot of other permits based on other things. It doesn't have to be single-family to make, to have revenue. Veronica, anything to report?
The board, we're close to making recommendations to the Board of Selectmen on permit fees for the town. They have not acted on it yet, so I expect within the next meeting or the one after that, we'll have something for us.
Great. Okay. Thank you. And then you'll just share that,
And then-
a summary of the,
Yes,
probably don't have to go into the nitty-gritty detail on that.
no,
Could read about it.
I'm sure.
Probably in the paper.
It'd probably be in the paper before it comes to us.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Anything under old business?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up something. I'd
Sure.
like to, maybe I'm a little premature, but I just don't want it to go under the radar, but I'd like to, this board to start preparing to go out to bid for a new auditor, getting our RFP in order or bid qualifications, and so we can go out. I don't want to be under the gun like we were.
Last year,
Yeah.
yes, and I thank you for that. I know last year it kind of slipped through the radar, and this year you're making sure it's not going to let that
Yeah.
happen. So there's been enough interest on this board, I think, from members to at least entertain that RFP to go out for auditors. So I'm fine with it. I think we need to move that process forward. Mary Jane, the release of that would be, when would it be the release of that? September, October, November? When do we?
It's ready, I can easily put that together. We just did it 3 years ago. We just have to update it, get
Right.
it done. Yeah.
Right, and there's really no reason for us at all to have to look at that. I mean, it's just gonna be, right? We don't need
I
to.
don't believe, no offense, but I don't believe I shared it with you last time.
Right,
We did it,
right,
but,
I don't think you did, so.
Or I can, you know,
So-
it's
Right, so
entirely up to you guys.
as far as,
Straightforward. I don't
pretty-
have any,
It's got all
I just wanna make sure the whatever the
due.
due process is to get out, if it has to come back before us, or I don't think it does. I mean, it's just a matter of sending it out, right? And
Correct?
getting the submissions back in a timely fashion to make a decision.
Right. Our current auditors have already noted, they've seen that in your minutes.
Yes,
They are aware, I just want to be sure that you will be allowing them to bid as well.
yes. Yes, absolutely.
Just
Open
have to
process,
ask the
open
question.
process. No, and it's a very
There
fair
are
question.
some communities who change, period, and don't allow their current.
Well, that's why I'm sort of pushing the issue. I just think it makes good sense just to go out there and, let other opportunities.
Absolutely, it's why we did it 3 years
Yeah.
ago, so. I think it was one of the first things I did when I got here, the
Right.
contract for that.
And the
yeah.
reason that we didn't really seriously think about switching at that time was there were a lot of new faces.
Correct, I
involved, and we
specifically
wanted some
asked
continuity.
not to have it changed that
So,
first year.
Yeah, and I think that our continuity is gonna be very much in place after this third year, so I think we're in
Right.
a
I
much
would-
better place.
I was new, and the lead on the audit was new at the same time.
Right.
So we've had new faces with
Yeah.
Bloom Shapiro.
Right,
Both of us were new to Guilford's accounts, so.
great. Anything else under old business? Thank you, Veronica.
Have we been approached by other auditors who are interested in our business?
We had 2 other smaller companies bid
Back in
before.
3, yeah.
That was it.
3 years.
But
Not since then.
they're typically not knocking on your door. That's not how they operate.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I only have one item under new business. I shared this with the board. This is really just to make sure that the community knows what's been going on, because I was a part of a meeting on Monday of last week. Actually, I attended the Board of Selectmen meeting, and then after, actually, I think it was part of the meeting, maybe it was a different agenda, but regardless, right after the Board of Selectmen had their regular meeting, there was a presentation from the Facilities Task Force that was formed. And ultimately, I just wanted to share it with the Board of Finance. I shared the document with everybody. There's really not much to it except for right now the findings. There are no recommendations, suggestions, estimated expenses related to really anything at this point. They do have a timeline that I just wanted to make sure it was known that they've surveyed all the town-owned property. They've received questionnaire responses from department heads. They've interviewed all facility-relevant departments. And then they provided a status update right on schedule in July of 2019. Their next step would be to prepare an analysis of findings, which would be in September 2019, and that would be to provide status update to the public and solicit feedback and provide initial recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. So there is a public process to this. There's no dates yet set, but I want to make sure the community knew that this has been moving forward. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that, really their mission is to assess and make recommendations on a short and long-term basis of suitability for the town-owned properties, based on condition, location, programmatic need, and also looking at preserving and enhancing the character, culture, and scenic values of Guilford. So the key findings they had right now dealt with just some of the items: solid waste management, parking, the Church Street property just north of us that was recently purchased, the Lathrop House that the Board of Education is in, and the Boston Street facility, which was the old DPW. They also were looking at storage needs, social services needs, but I think that the number one thing that if our first selectman was here, and I think the entire community talks about, it's the situation we have with the DPW. And again, it's a finding at this point. There's no suggestions of where it's going to move to, if it's going to move. But I think it's fair to say that the community, regarding the DPW, there's some really immediate issues there. The facility is in very poor shape. It was really supposed to be kind of a temporary facility until something else was found. If that, at least that's my understanding. It was not supposed to be there, for a long period, especially with the Town Center South report that came out many, many years ago. They have storage issues, they have traffic issues. We all know that the vehicles are going in and out of downtown and through the Green and down Whitfield Street on a daily basis, and there's a lot of vehicles at that are doing that, sometimes more than twice a day. And I think the one thing that came out of the meeting on Monday was the possibility of a dedicated committee that would be a subcommittee of the task force to actually deal with the DPW facility situation and the issues there. So it was a very, very good report. I don't think the findings were rocket science. I don't think they were really a surprise regarding the situations we have with some of our facilities. But the next step is really to go out publicly in September and start sharing this information and start getting feedback from the public, which I think is the way it should be done. And I think we would all agree that the public needs to be heard on all these different facilities. So when I thought it was important enough to share with the Board of Finance tonight and with the community regarding the findings, which are ongoing and will be more in September. Any questions or comments on that? Okay. Anything else under new business? Public forum? If not, then at this point, I will continue to ask everyone and keep enjoying their summer. Hopefully they are, and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.